Hello, this is Mr. M, and this is another episode of Critical BDSM, and welcome to Rope Day. We're going to be talking about the different kinds of rope, what ropes are made out of, and how they might or might not want to be included in your practice. So let's just jump right in. First thing we're going to talk about is the most commonly available rope to a lot of folk. That would be good old nylon. There's nylon. Now, the thing about rope is that there's a couple things that we always want to be talking about. We want to be talking about what material it's made out of and how that's going to affect its hygiene. We're also going to be talking about its burn speed, its bite, and its elasticity. Now, nylon is wonderful in that it's a synthetic, which means it's very easy to clean. You can rub antibacterial wipes down it, you can wash it, you can tie it into daisy chains, and then throw it into a laundry bag and then just wash it in your washing machine, hot on hot, and it'll kill just about anything. That's great. The problem with nylon is that it's very slippery, which means that when you tie a knot in it, it's very prone to coming undone. Additionally, nylon has a very, very low burn speed in that just drawing it across your skin at a slow rate will actually give you a rope burn. And that's a problem if you want to be tying someone up very quickly. Nylon. Cheap, easy to get your hands on, lots of fun, but make sure your knots are perfect, and you're going to have to be careful and perhaps integrate it into your play that you're going to be sensuous about how you apply it to a body. Next, also very easily available to most people here in the United States, cotton. Cotton, once again, is easy to find in your local hardware store. Now, cotton, unlike nylon, actually has very good bite. It holds a knot incredibly well, and in fact, that's part of the problem with it. Cotton has a high elasticity. It stretches, and what that means is that if you tie a really tight knot in it, it's really hard to untie it because the knot grabs on and then it stretches into itself and doesn't want to let go. Cotton is actually very widely used mostly for people who are doing like American traditional bondage, tied to a railroad track. Ha ha ha, I'm a bad, evil doer, I am Snidely Whiplash. Rah. And that can be lots and lots of fun. And if you want to be traditional about it, that's usually what you're going to be using. But you do need to be aware that it's quite frequent, it's probably the most frequent rope out there, that you are going to be using scissors to get yourself out of. You'll notice the hero always uses, a knife or something. He doesn't actually try to untie it. Or when he does, he's always struggling, and they're looking at the train, and then they're struggling, and they're looking at the train, and they're struggling and looking at the train, and the reason for that is probably because it was made out of cotton. Alright, now we're going to get into sort of the more bondage-specific ropes. Sorry, there's going to be one more before we do that. Go to your local, climbing store or whatever, you can get climbing line. Frankly, climbing line can be very fun. It can come bright and pretty colors because you want to be able to see it in the dark. And, it has actually a decent burn speed. Not as good as some other things, but not bad. And once again, it's easy to clean. The thing about climbing line frequently is that it gets very bulky when you tie knots in it. It's not great for creating intricate knot work because it's made to be stronger than that. It's made to be stiffer than that. It's made to be run across jagged ropes, jagged rocks, and not break. And so it's got a bit of a stiffness to it that can sort of take away from a lot of the play. It makes knots end up with these sort of holes in them that are the result of so even if you pull really hard, you still get that little bit of a gap because it's a stiff rope. And but besides that, it's actually not bad. Okay, the most common thing you hear about when you're talking about dropping ropes over here. You can't see them, but I am. The most common rope that you hear about in America when it comes to, if you're going to do traditional shibari, you have to use hemp. Hemp is a lovely rope. It has a smell that a lot of people really enjoy. Just to be very, very clear, the plants that you make hemp rope out of are not the kind that you... It's actually a completely different substance. There's an interesting relationship between hemp and what I'll get to next, jute, in that because it's, despite what a lot of people think, actually easier to get hemp in America than jute, most Americans use hemp. Just like it's much easier to get jute in Japan than it is to get hemp, so most Japanese practitioners tend to use jute. They are actually in many ways very similar. I'll just pull these over and we'll do them together. Hi. These are the ones that you'll see most of those traditional folk using. You'll also see it most commonly in a lot of, bondage photography or whatever. This is what you see people using and, turning into other things. Now, the nice thing about hemp is hemp has a very, very high burn speed. So, once again, you can really pull it across the skin quite quickly. So does jute. Jute is a little lighter than hemp is. Besides that, they're very equal. They've got great bite, and they've got, once again, that great burn speed, and they hold knots incredibly well. The problem with jute and hemp, and even cotton, actually, is that they're organic ropes, and that's the only big problem with them, in my mind, anyways. And by being organic, that means that like most plants, they suck in moisture, and that includes bodily fluids, which means you have to be very, very careful with the hygiene on them. You're going to need to clean them, and you're going to need to clean them well. Frequently, you'll have ropes that are assigned to a fluid-bonded partner if you want to put anything in any area that's a little more delicate, because that's going to stay on them. They're going to smell like that, probably like that person, for a good long time, even if you do clean them, really well. Like any organic, you can clean them, just like you would do like a shirt. A lot of people have like hemp shirts as they go to certain types of shops, and once again, you can just you can bind them up and toss them into the washing machine. A lot of these, pretty much any rope, you really can do that with. A lot of people will boil their hemp to also break it down, the fibers in them, to help process them, but also just to clean them. But yeah, hemp and jute. Finally, I would want to talk to you real quick about MFP. MFP. MFP comes in pretty colors. MFP is multifilament polypropylene. MFP was essentially purpose-made for bondage. What it is a synthetic, easy to clean, that has good bite and a high burn speed. The idea is that it's easy to clean, and you can it'll hold a knot real well, and got a nice tight knot, but it won't be elastic, so it won't hold the knot forever. A lot of people really like MFP. It doesn't have as good a bite as hemp. It's one of those things where it's not as good as in certain ways, but it's a lot of people think that its pluses make up for its lapses. Hemp is a wonderful rope, but once again, because of that cleanliness factor, a lot of people like this. I personally love to use MFP, especially if I'm going to be doing certain types of artistic shoots where I want colors. And I can get I can get MFP in just about any color I want. Bright, dazzling colors, where the hemp ropes, when they're dyed, tend to be more of a muted color. The other thing that I like about MFP is, once again, that cleanliness factor. When I'm going to be working in a club, or I'm going to be working in some sort of public environment where there might be drinks spilled, or I don't know what's on the floor, I can run a antibacterial wipe down this before I use it, and then I feel much more comfortable putting it on a body. Or if something I'm doing a performance piece in that environment, and when I toss it on the ground, then suddenly, at the end of the show, once again, I can clean them off, and I feel much more comfortable, putting them in my bag that way. It's just a personal preference. So yeah, there's climbing line, nylon, cotton, jute, hemp, and MFP. Those are most of the common things you're going to be able to see. There are a lot of wonderful vendors out there. I'm not going to recommend any right at this moment, but I highly recommend that you investigate and you try them out, find what suits you, because remember, this is all about you. This is about you and your partner coming together and finding something that really brings together your desires. And if you find something that really speaks to you, or you find something you really like, and by the way, one of the things often neglected, if you find something you're not allergic to, because, once again, those organics, because they're plants, you can be allergic, just be aware of that and work with what makes you happy. I'm Mr. M, this is Critical BDSM, and thank you for listening.